Welcome to the What Good Looks Like podcast, where we shine the spotlight on organizations and leaders who are truly living out what it means to champion the message and the work of purpose in the marketplace today. I'm your host, Davin Salvagno.
I'd much rather have you have a purpose than a purpose statement. I don't care if you ever write it down. But if people can detect it and live it, and know it to be true, you don't have to write it down. I would tell you, if that's the direction you want to move in, live it for a year and earn your right to write it down. Make it true first, then make it words.
Welcome back to the What Good Looks Like podcast. I am here with Ron Carucci, the co-founder and managing partner of Navalent and the author of one of the most incredible books that I've read in the last year, To Be Honest. Such an incredible work. Ron, my dear Paisan friend, thank you for being here with us today.
Davin, it's always great to be in your presence. Okay, brother.
I felt that through the screen. It was beautiful.
I made sure you did. Always just such a gift to be in your presence.
I feel the same about you. I wish we could spend even more time together. And I'm really cherishing this next 30 minutes that we're going to spend together, really unpacking your story and your work with our listeners today. And I mean, if there's anything that this world needs more than ever, it's honesty. It's scarce. And you're one of the most honest and purposeful people that I know.
Well, that's very, very kind of you to say. It's I think you're right. I think you don't have to look around very far to see that we're in a trust recession. And earning and keeping the trust of people today is more important but harder than it ever was. And I think too many leaders take that for granted.
That is a powerful phrase, a trust recession. I've never heard that before. I mean, that is a fantastic way to phrase what we are going through right now. So for those who don't know you, and those of you who are listening today, I share just a little bit about your background, your story. And we could start with, you were born and wherever you want to take this, but
now it's the 5 kids in a big Italian family in New York.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
Loud, violent, passionate.
You're loud and passionate. I've not known you to be violent.
You watch The Sopranos, you think it's fiction. I watch The Sopranos, I think it's Thanksgiving.
Oh, it's so good.
Anyway,
share your story a little bit, just wherever you want to start, a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into this space. And
so I began my career in the arts. That's a whole other podcast story, but I began my career in the arts, far from this field. But over the course of some profound and important experiences of seeing how the arts got used for different things other than entertainment, but for changing people's hearts and minds, I learned that one, I bored easily. So doing the same thing 8 times a week was not all that fun for me. And while telling great stories was interesting to me, engaging people in their story was something I would never get bored doing. And so I made the arc of my career switch, thank God, in my 20s into org behavior or psychology, and learned that leadership is and organizations are beautiful things. I love seeing what humans can do at scale. I think since I was a kid, I was always fascinated by what human beings could do when you gather them together that they couldn't do on their own. Unfortunately, they don't do it all that well on their own. They need help. You take 4 walls, put a roof on it, fill it up with human beings, and stuff's going to happen. And so I loved learning how to optimize human endeavor at scale. I think it shows the beauty of who humans can really be when they team up and do something bigger than themselves. I also learned that doing that inside big companies, where I began that part of my career, required certain political and diplomatic kinds of capabilities that I sorely lacked. And so, I thought I was actually there to tell the truth and improve performance and make things better. But turns out that wasn't the case. And I began this wonderful collection of severance packages that told me that, okay, I need to figure something out here because I love organizations. I love this work. It doesn't seem to love me back in that setting. But when I would be in between big company jobs, I would go out and consult. And I finally picked up on the fact that the same behavior that got me into a little bit of trouble inside companies got me paid really well outside companies.
Mm.
So I kind of figured out, you know what, I'm going to take the hint here. And if I'm going to live out my passion for organizations, it's going to have to be by not being part of one. And so came outside companies to do it as an outsider where, you know, ancient wisdom has told us you can't be a prophet in your own land, right? But from outside the land, it's expected that you be a prophet and tell the truth and say what no one else is willing to say. So I did that for 8 or so years in New York City at a wonderful firm, sort of the premier firm of organizational behavioralists and scientists. And then that firm got sold to a bigger firm, and then it stopped being fun. And a few of us, now 18 years ago, said, hey, we love this craft too much to do it like this. Let's go do it the way we want to do it. And we started Navalent. And that was 18 years ago.
Wow. I have to say, first of all, kudos on being so honest just in that story. I mean, think about this. You're first of all, a very well versed author and speaker and very knowledgeable in these subjects. But obviously a core of your work is companies who want to bring your knowledge and wisdom into them, engaging you and your organization. And here you come on here and say, hey, listen, if there's one thing that the companies don't like to be told, it's the truth. And I've learned that working inside of companies, and that didn't go so well. And so what I decided to do was go and become a consultant and, you know, tell people that what they need to hear, not maybe what they want to hear, and make a living off of that. And you did that. And I mean, first of all, so needed, but very bold of you to share. I mean, where did you find the courage to be able to step out and say, you know, I spoke my mind and what needed to be heard when I was employee inside organization. It was never received well. And so now I'm going to go start this journey as a consultant, telling people what they need to hear for a living. And I don't care whether it's received well or not.
Well, you know, so for mortgages have very profound ways of focusing your mind when you have to pay them. You know, one of my last inside company experiences was working in a technology company, but for the IT tech community inside technology company. And the leader of that community was known to be quite dishonest and just a mean man. And so as an internal practitioner, I was brought in to help try and sort that out. So we collected a bunch of data, and on the bar graphs, on the quantitative data, there was all these dimensions we measured, but integrity had a little dip in it. And then if you broke down the data even further in the department, you really saw the variance there. So obviously he's not happy with this data, didn't want me to share it. I'm like, no, they know I collected it. They know what they said. There's no point in hiding it. So in the middle of a discussion, he had a couple of his soldiers in the room ready to plant and, you know, sort of scratch the data. This woman stands up and in her PhD, very academic way says, how do we know this data is even valid? What was there empirical tests done? Are the validity tests done? Is there reliability quotients here? I mean, it's just like, this could be a Cosmos survey. So why should we believe it? And that was an absolute seminal moment in my career. I thought, okay, however I respond right now will determine not just a lot of my life, but how credible I am as a practitioner in this company. I said, well, seems to be two questions you're asking. Let me just talk about the data itself. And I said, statistically, I couldn't keep up with her stat language, but I said that there's a reliability quotient. It's valid to a 0.89. The survey's clearly legitimate. We have validity statistics here. So we can't dismiss the data based on the quantitative aspects of it. But let's test your theory. And so I said, how many of you in this room have never lied to somebody else in this room? And nobody raised their hands. So I said to her, I actually think we all really know what the data is telling us. I don't think we need to question it.
Wow, that is powerful.
And I got that severance package probably 6 months later.
Are these severance these packages, are they like trophies on your wall? Do you have them like framed like each? But you should.
Right? I cashed a check. I can. Some of them, one of them I volunteered for. Two of them I did not. both caught in political crossfires, and was scared. Obviously, I had young kids, but on principle, recognized these are environments I belong in. As an employee, I belong in them as somebody who wants to heal them, because the people in that community were hurting. They were good-hearted, honest people who cared about the work, whose voices were being squelched, whose impact was being muted. And my job was to help, liberate the goodness in there. And I had information that could do that. Now, what they chose to do with it once I part ways, I can't control that, but at least I will have poured some antibiotic on the infection.
Yes, that's a really good analogy. You said something, or we were sharing actually before we started recording this, when you and I were having a conversation, and we were talking about, what people need to hear versus what they want to hear. And there's a lot of great leadership books out there. I mean, tons of them. One of our common friends, Scott Miller, he's got one of the best podcasts I've ever seen. Probably every single book here. There you go. Holding up Master Mentors right there. Shout out to Scott Miller. Man, if you haven't read Master Mentors in that series, that's fantastic. I was just talking to him this weekend. What an incredible person, author. And his set is just covered floor to ceiling with books, right? Floor to ceiling. I mean, there's probably more books on that set than in the New York Library. And everyone's looking for a book to make them feel good, to affirm them, to make them feel valued. And you come out and you write a book that says, listen, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. In fact, I'm going to tell you what the world needs to hear and what every leader on the face of the planet needs to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. And I love the subtitle of Leading with the Power of Truth, Justice, and Purpose. I want to kind of dive a little bit into this work and help us understand the elements of what's in here that we all need to hear and why that's so important.
So this journey, the research didn't begin to be a book, wasn't started out to be a book. We have access to incredible, I've interviewed thousands and thousands and thousands of leaders all over the world. And those data repositories of those interviews are gold mines. And so we have access to phenomenal AI technology that helps us mine them for meta wisdom. At the 10-year mark, we did a book called Rising to Power, which was about how it is we were watching so many wonderful leaders rise up and flame out within 18 months, which we've known to be true forever. And we wanted to understand why that was and how to fix that. At 15 years, now we're up to well over 3,200 interviews of leaders over a 15-year time frame. We thought, wonder what else is in that basket. But we thought, okay, well, if the technology is that intelligent, why don't we let it tell us what we should be asking it, rather than go in with a hypothesis? So we fed it all the data, and it came back with what the data scientists call drill sites. And there was this pile of correlating factors on honesty and truth-telling, and some of the things that could be predictive of that. And I thought, oh my gosh, if we could predict the conditions under which somebody would tell the truth and behave well and serve a greater good, and the conditions under which they might otherwise lie, cheat, and serve their own interests first, that would be profound. So we fed it all in and really, shaped the study well. And in fact, it spit back to us very clear factors that can predict the conditions under which somebody who otherwise might be good-hearted and well-meaning and honest might go to the dark side. So we published the research, and everybody kept asking me, "Can you dissect Wells Fargo through that? Can you dissect USC and the college admission scandal through that? Can you show me how Theranos failed in those factors?" And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I did a couple of them just to sort of demonstrate the efficacy of the model, but who cares? Those are terribly soul-draining stories to tell. I wanted to know who's doing it well. There are plenty of people out there who are living and embodying these findings in ways that I want them as my boss. I want to emulate them. I want to be like them. I want to go tell their stories. And I began to look for them. And oh my gosh, the great news, Davin. Well, you saw several hundred of them at your conference, right? They're everywhere. They really are everywhere. They're far from perfect human beings, and they would be the first to say that. But as an embodiment of what honesty means, as we learned what it means in this book, they are the living emblems of integrity and goodness and purpose and justice. And so I thought, I want to tell their stories. And as I began to collect them, that's what said to me, I want to do a book. I want to create a book of heroes, of people that are showing the light in the path for the rest of us. These are not sort of some sprinkle of fairy dust that gets sprinkled on some character, built few, that these are things we can all do. That's what made me decide, okay, I'm going to write this.
That's fantastic. I have to ask you on a personal note, because we share a lot of the same common beliefs, values, desires, even vision for the world. And we both love storytelling. I mean, the whole essence of the reason why this podcast is called What Good Looks Like, it's literally shining the spotlight on authors like you and thought leaders and people leaders of organizations who truly are leading with purpose, with truth, with justice, and helping make the world a better place. For you personally, why does that matter? Why does it matter that, I mean, it feels like we're swimming upstream. You, a lot of us in this space. Why do you keep doing it?
Somebody on some podcast, I don't know, it was since this book has come out, because it was in a conversation about this book, but I can't remember who, but anyway, asked me a question. And they said, what is your yes? And what is your no? Like, what are the things you really want to stand up for or stand up to? And I had never thought about those questions that way before, but I didn't struggle to answer the no question. The thing that I think, sure, we can all look at starving children and homelessness and terrible scourges on humanity and be heartbroken about them and want to help. But I think the thing that sickens my stomach and keeps me up at night is wasted human glory. When people who were created to do much grander things in their life are languishing. I often think about the parable of the talents and think, okay, God, why did you do that way for? You made a mistake. Should you just give everybody 5, be done with it. Why did you distribute them asymmetrically? Why did some get 1, 2, 4, 8, whatever? And then the remit is double that. Why did you make it so uneven? Well, when I get to create my universe one day, I'll get to do it my way. But in the meantime, this is how it is. But when I watch the people who really were blessed with 6, 8, 9 talents and are expected to remit double back to them, but spend their entire life, sometimes unconsciously, burying them, much less the furthest thing from doubling them, it makes me ill. I just can't, or they're in it, or they put themselves in environments that support a narrative of there's no more to you than that. Rather than putting them in, leaders creating environments that unleash the greatness in people, unleash people's deepest impact and yearnings for, we all get up every morning with 2 questions on our minds. Every human being, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, wants to know, do I matter and do I belong? No matter who I show up as, is my unique fingerprint on the world worthy of my significance? And no matter who I show up as or what I look like, will I be welcomed? And when the answer to those questions is yes, you see something very different than when people struggle to wonder, is the answer to those questions yes? Because then we see the counterfeit questions. People then, when they doubt the answer is yes, they then go about trying to answer the counterfeit ones. How do I look like I matter? And how do I look like I belong? And we've all seen how disturbing that movie can be when people have to perform their importance or muscle their welcome. And so I don't want environments where people have to doubt. I want leaders to take those questions off the table, so that when I show up, I'm already at yes. And now I go about living as if they're true, and living that I am a welcomed, cared for, dignified human being, worthy of the glory I want to radiate.
So good. Oh my goodness. That 3 to 5 minute snippet that you just said there was so profound. For those of you who are listening to this, I encourage you to rewind it and listen to that again. I mean, that was, I mean, honestly, Ron, when you think about it, I've been not saying this to be self-promotional, but I've shared with you that I'm writing a second book called The Thief of Purpose. And one of the chapters in there is called Lies. And I reference your work, to be honest, in that chapter. And the reality is that for whatever reason, we all struggle with this natural ability to tell the truth, right? Whether it's white lies or whatever the case is. We've been told the truth will set you free, but for whatever reason, we still struggle with that basic command. And it robs us of our purpose. It robs us of our potential. I mean, I've got 2 young kids, and no matter how many times that I tell them, I mean, they're 12 and 8 years old, I say, listen, if you tell the truth, you won't get in trouble. We'll have a conversation about it. But if you lie, the consequence is going to be far more worse. They choose to lie anyway. It doesn't matter how you preface it. And so we know this even as adults and even as leaders, that if we can create spaces where people could just show up to yes, they could show up and just tell the truth and be able to be their most honest selves, then we can unleash the potential and the purpose that is within that person. And you said something that just grieved me, is that you said that people are burying their own potential and purpose, and they don't even know it. With every non-honest moment that they have, they're burying their potential and their purpose. How do we recognize those moments? How in the moment when it's like we've got a choice, be honest or don't. How do we recognize in that moment the choice to overcome the barriers that get in the way, fear or whatever it might be? How do we recognize those and make the right decision to be honest so we don't bury our potential?
Well, my belief is that you can't be true to yourself, which we all said we want to do, until you're true about yourself. University of Massachusetts says we all lie on average twice a day. But if what I know to be true is that none of our dishonest behaviors are random. What we learned in this book is that honesty is not a character trait. Honesty is not some noble set of principles you live by. Honesty is a muscle. It is an absolute capability you actually have to work at to be good at. And you have to work at it and earn it every day. And so one of the things I ask leaders to do when I'm helping them with their own trustworthiness is to go back to their calendar and remember, honesty in this book is defined not as just not lying. Honesty is defined as truth, justice, and purpose. You have to say the right thing, do the right thing, and say and do the right thing for the right reason. That's what gets you labeled as honest. You might do one of those or 2 of those and be a nice person, but no one's going to call you honest. So I ask leaders to go through their calendars for the last 8 or 10 days and to privately, so no one is going to see this, to pick out several moments where they were less than themselves. The moment where you embellished data to your boss, where you withheld some harsher feedback to your direct report because you didn't want to deal with their defensiveness, where you were curt to the barista at Starbucks, where you dismissed your kids because you were busy, where you were not generous to your spouse. Pick out moments where you know you behaved less than who you say you are. And what I guarantee you will find is a pattern. If you want to get better at being honest in life, you have to first be honest about what brings you to your dishonesty in the first place. And it's not random. We make those choices for a reason. When your kids choose to lie to you in spite of the invitation to be truthful, they choose to lie for a reason. It is serving a purpose. It is the purpose of, I want to engineer a certain response. I want to be seen a certain way. I don't want to feel rejected. I want to feel welcomed and that I matter, because I'm not sure that I do, so I'm going to engineer a new path to that. I am afraid of losing this. And all of those behaviors, you will see them serving the same needs. Nobody walks into a coffee shop intentionally saying, how can I really ruin this barista's day? But at the moment where that barista makes a mistake or is late or whatever, and you feel entitled to express your frustrations, impatience, disappointment on them, that there's a reason for that. You feel that's okay, right? You feel some need to feel more in control, more superior, more important. And that behavior, you believe, serves that. Now, of course, the unfortunate reality is that none of the needs you think are being served are actually being served. But in that moment, that's what you believe. And if you want to get better at being honest, you have to be honest about finding new choices to meet those same needs. It's okay to want to feel important. It's okay to want to feel safe. It's okay to want to feel highly regarded. It's okay to want to feel safe. It's okay. Those are perfectly good needs. And coding those needs in choices that A, are dishonest and B, don't meet the need anyway, is probably not the best pathway to them. And you first have to face into that music before you can say, I'm going to go on to get better at being honest.
So good. I mean, what you just said there about the three major nuggets that were just beautiful. One, the perspective of being honest is a muscle. It's something you have to work at. First of all, it's something that you want to have to work at because it takes work. And all of us want to look better, feel better physically, go to the gym. We all know how that works out. Everyone joins the gym in January, and by February they're gone because, it's just comfortability is more important to them than the hard work it takes to be who they want to be outwardly. Imagine how much harder it is to take the time and energy to be present in each moment, to know who you are and how you're showing up, and to work on the muscle of being who we want to be inwardly, and then how we express that outwardly. And you said another thing there, which was really, really critical about the difference between honesty and truth. A lot of times we think that those are the same thing. And in your book, you do a great job of breaking that down. There's a reason that truth is in the subtitle of it. And because you said being honest is not just saying the right thing, it's not just doing the right thing, but it was saying and doing the right thing for the right reason. And I think that's the hard part. It's easy for us to recognize maybe when we're not saying the right thing or not doing the right thing. I think we can recognize when we're doing that, and we can feel ashamed of that, and we can course correct that. But what we often don't have our finger on is, are we saying and doing the right thing for the right reason? And that's such a critical point that you made, because as we kind of come on the back end of our time together, I want to unwrap that a little bit for leaders, specifically in the context of the work of purpose, because there's a lot of people that are talking about purpose. There's a lot of people that are saying purpose and doing purpose and leading with purpose. It's kind of come from a buzzword, but they're not all doing it for the right reason. There's a lot of dishonesty in the purpose space.
Absolutely. And here's the good news or the bad news for them. People see, when you're purpose washing, people see right through it. People see through it in your brands. They see through it in your behavior. They see when purpose is performative, it's going to collapse like a wet noodle, because people are so hungry for it that they're willing to scrutinize it that much more. And if your purpose is not authentic, but in fact, concocted to engineer an outcome, it will be very short-lived. All the research, talks about in the book talks about how the genuinely purpose-driven companies far outperform their peers on any metric you would care about. Market share, profitability, earnings per share if you're publicly traded, customer loyalty, employee loyalty, brand loyalty, every metric you care about. But those same consumers will leave you like a cheap suit and move on to a different product if they think you're purpose washing. And today, most consumers expect purpose washing before they'll believe your purpose is genuine. So you're starting off in the red. If you think you can put the wool over your consumers or your employees' eyes with a cosmetic purpose that is just washing away, if you decided to go become a purpose-driven company in the face of a scandal, don't think for a minute people aren't going to know what you're doing. And so if you don't live that purpose, if people's lived experience of your organization is not matching those words, I'd much rather have you have a purpose than a purpose statement. I don't care if you ever write it down, but if people can detect it and live it and know it to be true, you don't have to write it down. And I would tell you, if that's the direction you want to move in, live it for a year and earn your right to write it down. Make it true first, then make it words. That's when people will actually believe you.
Ooh, that is powerful. Make it true first and then make it words. Because there's so many organizations that are writing purpose statements.
Oh, the marketing department,
they're putting it on their brand.
Departments are out of control, trying to brush on purpose over their products.
Yes. Live it out, be clear about what it is, make it true, and then make it words. That was powerful. That's one of the things I appreciate There's many things I appreciate about you, Ron. But we had the opportunity to spend some time at the Purpose Summit last May at Notre Dame, where there was 219 companies there, and I believe that a strong majority of them were living out their purpose. They were making it true. They weren't just words. There were far many more that wanted to be in the room, but for maybe not the right reasons, right?
Yeah.
How do we get leaders to take that mindset switch seriously? Because I feel like the people who truly want to live out purpose and make it true before they become words, there's no convincing that needs to be done there, right? The condition of their heart and their mind is in the right place. We just need to equip them with the resources and the tools to make that a reality. The hard work are all of the leaders of today that are purpose washing, that are not doing it for the right reasons. And we want to change the world. And you said something before our podcast, is that the world has changed through great friends and great relationships who come up with great ideas that want to do something together. And I feel like the more that we can get leaders to take that journey, the more we can make this world a better place. How do we get the ones that haven't thought about this the right way to think about it the right way?
So I would start with the ones that haven't thought about it at all. I think the ones that are trying to perform it, I might save those for last, because you have to pull them out of the red zone. But there's a bunch of leaders out there who are good and caring and dutiful, who haven't thought about the greater good at all. And I think that's where the low-hanging fruit is these and here's the question I would disturb them with. Do the people you lead trust you? And whenever I ask that question, I'm always going, well, sure, why wouldn't they? And my question is always, but why should they? And what I often get, Davin, is a litany of good intentions. Well, I tell them the truth, and I'm straightforward with them, and I advocate for their careers, and I intend to do all these good things. And people often bet their trustworthiness on their good intentions, not on evidence. And so my question to those leaders who are marking time and taking for granted whether or not they're trustworthy because they're well-intended are in the most dangerous place they can be in, because they could be hemorrhaging trust by the minute and not even know it. And when a catastrophe hits, and it will, a defecting customer, a botched product, a product recall, a scandal, something happens that, the Scud missile hits your team, and you will quickly know whether or not people trust you. And I don't know why, you have homeowners insurance, you have car insurance, you protect yourself in advance of problems for the peace of mind to know that if there was a problem, you'd have help. Why would you mortgage your trustworthiness and bet that it's going to be there when you most need it? And so for those leaders, I would tell you that I guarantee that if I interviewed all the people on your team, I would find places where you're not trusted that you don't know. Every night at the dinner tables of those you lead, stories about you are being told. And if you don't know what stories are being told, and you're just assuming they're good stories, that's a dangerous place to be. So I had one client, a quick story, and this is a good guy. This is not a jerk. I'd done all the interviews for him, and we were starting to pile through the data, and I said, "You've lost the trust of your team." And he got really defensive, and he said, "Well, how could that possibly be? I've never been. They get all the information I get. I don't withhold anything from them. I'm transparent. I root for them. I give them opportunities to shine. All the things." I said, apparently, during your meetings, and you meet too much, but apparently during your too many meetings, when somebody in your team is struggling to express themselves or trying to form their point of view and they go on a little bit too long, you cut them off and you get snarky. You get a little sarcastic with them. And he went, well, okay, everybody has a bad day. I said, apparently you have a lot of them. And what do you think you're telling your people in those moments? That I'm impatient. I'm like, no, what you're telling them is you're not safe. What you're telling them is that when it comes to forming ideas and thoughts, sharing what they think, even something that contradicts with what you think, you are in a safe place to do that. So they're not going to. So I can guarantee you, you're getting information in this data that shouldn't have had to go through me to get. And so they can't trust you. And so once they've decided not to trust you with their ideas or their thoughts or their unformed thinking, it's only half a step away from not trusting you with anything.
Oof.
And so those are the leaders I want in the room next year at your conference. Those are the leaders who are taking for granted their trustworthiness, but with a little bit of evidence might realize that's a bad thing to do.
So good. I mean, talk about blind spots. I mean, we all need people. Yeah. I'm not saying this literally because you wrote the book on honesty, but you are truly probably the most honest person that I know. You have no problem telling people what their blind spots are, but we need that. We need people. I
had somebody on social media say about me, Ron is the only person I know that can tell someone to go to hell and they'll ask for directions. I don't think that's a compliment.
To me, I was sharing this in our conversation before we started recording. We had the Purpose Summit movie come out, and our mutual friend Gary Ridge, who is actually how we met. We met through Gary. He opens up his talk and he says, "My friend Ron Carucci is in the audience today, and he wrote a book called To Be Honest." And you know what he said to me before I came up? He looked at me and pointed his finger and he said, "Don't suck." And he goes, "If that's not honest, I don't know what is." But we need people like that. We need people who are going to tell us what we need to hear and not necessarily what we want to hear.
And for me, it's not, it's how I show care. I think for any leader who is withholding information that could help somebody be better, thinking that they're doing it because they want to save their feelings, it's nothing but selfish and cruel. If you have information, get over your own discomfort. It's not about you. You have information. If people believe that you're sharing it because you care, they'll get that. They might bristle, but so what? So your protection of your own comfort at the expense of someone's ability to grow, you shouldn't be leading anybody. You shouldn't be leading anybody.
Say that line again. Your protection of your own comfort at the expense of someone's ability to grow. Wow.
If that's your priority, that's fine. Be selfish, but don't lead. If you don't have somebody coming into your office at least twice a week saying something that makes you uncomfortable, you can be very confident your leadership sucks.
Wow.
Very simple.
So true.
And because they're telling somebody, and if your conclusion is that the reason they're not coming in is because there isn't anything uncomfortable to say, now you're stupid. Because if you have a team of 5 people, there's enough complexity there for somebody to go wrong or to go off kilter regularly. And if they're not telling you, who are they telling? They're telling somebody. They're telling your customers. Oh, I know this sucks. I'm so sorry this happened. It happens every week. We've all been on the other end of that phone call. The customer service rep who just blabs to us things we shouldn't know. We're like, oh, what's it like to work at that company? You should want to know. Here, I'll leave you with this really gross metaphor. If you and a significant other were at a dinner party and you left early, very nice dinner party, and you get in the car and your significant other turns to you and says, "Honey, you have a big thing hanging off the end of your nose. Get it off. It's been there all night." You might ask the question, what?
Why didn't you tell me sooner?
Tell me now. Every one of us has things hanging off our behavior that we can't see. And you should want to get in on the conversation. And no, because those are the things that make you not trustworthy.
That's so good. That's so good. We need more than 30 some minutes together because this conversation, we're going to have to do another episode because there's just so much to unpack here. And, but I like wrapping this up with that metaphor because I think that's powerful. We all of us, every single one of us has something hanging off the end of our nose. And if we truly cared for each other, if we were truly leaders, we would help people see what that is. And we wouldn't, protect our comfort at the expense.
It's the spinach in our teeth.
Growth.
We all have spinach in our teeth, and we should, and you'd want to know, and you'd want to tell somebody.
Yeah, so good. Well, I'm going to give you the final word in our final moments here today. For those who are still with us and still listening, what would you leave with our audience today to help them be more honest, to be more truthful, to lead through truth, justice, and purpose, and help others become the best version of themselves through their leadership?
Well, two things. One is you need to go sign up for the Purpose Summit 2023 now, and be in the room, really be in the room. And that's not about let's promote the conference. You have to be in places where the conversation's happening. And if it's not happening in your organization or your workplace or with your therapist, it should be happening with at least your therapist or your coach, but be in the room where it's happening. Two, I would ask you to do this. Think about this. If you pulled the mission statement or purpose statement or value statement off the wall of your company and asked your team this question: if people followed us around with a video camera for a day in the life of our team, put it on mute, could that video be used as a training program to train people on these values? And if nobody jumps on the question right away, you have your answer. But then the next question you have to ask is, where are the places I lead that contradict these words? And ask them to be honest with you.
So good. So good. Ron, I am so grateful for you. I am thankful that our friend Gary connected us a little.
It's actually Rich Sheridan.
Oh, it was Rich Sheridan.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm glad that you said that. You know, we have all so many friends that are like connecting.
Well, all the pathways.
That's right. And Rich Sheridan's a phenomenal human being. If you're listening to this and you haven't met Rich Sheridan, you need to. He is the master of storytelling and of joy. His works, Chief Joy Officer, Joy Inc. Incredible works. But thank you for reminding me that was Rich that connected us.
And he's actually a whole case study in my last book, Rising to Power. He's the closing case study in the book.
Fantastic. He's fantastic. Well, speaking of your book, if you haven't read To Be Honest, I encourage you to go and pick up To Be Honest. It is a masterpiece of a book. It will help you personally. It will help you and challenge you as a leader to truly be the best possible leader that you can be. It's changed my life. Ron, you've changed my life. You know, there's few things that change our lives. Great food, great conversation, truth. But you personally, our time together over this last year and just getting to know each other, you've changed my life. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful.
It's mutual, my friend. It's mutual. You are inspiration in motion. I love the work you're doing at Purpose Point, and I love that you are forcing the world to take notice of a conversation that they're long overdue from having. And I'm cheering you on every step of the way.
Thank you, my friend. I'm grateful that you're a part of it. I can't wait to be together soon. I know we'll be together in May at the Purpose Summit, and we will probably do another conversation like this very soon because there's so much more to talk about.
That's a deal. I'll bring the lasagna.
Very, very good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you. For those of you listening today, again, here with Ron Carucci, the co-founder, managing partner of Navalent, the author of the incredible book, To Be Honest. Go get your copy today. And come meet him at the Purpose Summit at Notre Dame next May 23rd, 24th, 25th. He'll be there along with so many other thought leaders and authors like him. Ron, we'll see you soon. And for those of you listening, we'll see you on the next episode of the What Good Looks Like podcast.
Peace out.